Hi, and welcome to RealClearFetish Talks RealClearPlay, a podcast that kind of talks about kink and sober life and everything in between, what that might look. Today, I am going all the way to Sweden, and my guest today is Miguel. Hi, Miguel.
Hey, how are you?
I'm very well, and you?
Everything's going well. Yeah, great.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Fantastic. Like with every episode I do, I start with 4 standard questions, and then we'll just see where the conversation goes.
Okay, perfect.
What do you prefer I call you, name, pronouns, and title?
You can call me Miguel, and then you can do he or him. So yeah, that's the best way.
And no titles?
No, not yet.
Not yet. Okay, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so my name is Miguel. I was born in Madrid 42 years ago. I'm a civil engineer, so that's my background. I studied civil engineer because my grandfather was driving trains, and I was fascinated how the speed trains works. Also, when we started the first high-speed train in Spain between Madrid and Sevilla, so I was like, I want to to learn that. And then I was working in Spain for until 2013 when the crisis came, and then I moved to Sweden. So I moved to Sweden 10 years ago. 2 years ago, I got my Swedish nationality, so I'm both Spanish and Swedish. So I'm part of the Swedish culture right now. I speak the language, so and I'm really happy to be here in Scandinavia.
Okay, fantastic. Completely sober, clear-headed, or social drinker?
Sober, when you mean in terms of alcohol and drugs, or is just alcohol? How do you mean?
More in relation to, do you socially drink, or are you completely don't touch anything at all?
Well, I drink. Sometimes I drink, not really often. If I drink, maybe just socially, I just maybe just drink a glass of wine when I have with friends on a gathering. Last time I was drunk was on a plane to Washington. I like to drink sometimes, when there's less oxygen, I would say. But normally I don't drink alcohol because my grandfather died of cancer with the kidneys. And then when I after doing a lot of CrossFit and also doing some changed behaviors in my food, I took some analysis, and they checked my kidneys, and they checked that they were filtering the water like an old 80-year-old man. So the doctor told me you should never drink. So yeah, that's what I'm not drinking alcohol.
Well, that's a good reason to kind of stay away from it, definitely.
Yeah.
What is clear play to you, and why is it important?
Clear in what sense?
Clear play, that can be sexual or day-to-day life, whatever it might. Why might it be important to you when you play that you don't drink or you don't use drugs?
Okay. I think it's because I really like to enjoy the moment with the person I'm with. I think for me it's important that both us are in the same, I would say, mental stage. And I don't believe that you really need drugs or alcohol to have this sexual connection with someone. I think naturally human beings, they can be together and have a lot of passion, a lot of entertainment, and a lot of fun. Especially, I love enjoying leather sex, for example. And I met a different couple of I have different leather couples, and I really enjoy sex with them. So I don't really need to take anything as a supplement to enjoy my sexual life. I think also I'm kind of scared of trying or testing it, because I'm a kid born in the 80s, and I remember doing a lot of sports since I was a kid. And then I see some people that were using drugs. They were jumping to the sport facility, and we have a fountain when we drink water there, and they used to clean their needles, and they used to so it was kind of, for me as a kid, I was kind of scared. My parents like, hey, be careful with that. So since then I was like, don't touch that world. So that's why I've never been there.
Well, that's a good place to be. It's like you have your boundaries on that, and you know what you like, and you can do that sober, and it's a very good place to be. If I'd been that clever a couple of years back, maybe I wouldn't be in the situation I'm in now. So you're from Spain.
Mm-hmm.
So what made you move to Sweden? For work, I'm assuming.
Yeah, no, that's not the reason.
Oh.
The reason was 2013. We have an economical crisis in Spain, and I was seeing a lot of my friends losing their jobs. So I remember I was in the office one day and I saw a pile of paper, and then a friend, a work colleague, was just passing those papers, and I was like, what are you doing? And he told me, well, these are CVs. It's like, we're looking for an engineer in Angola. And I was like, wow. I mean, he told me around 900 people, they send me their CVs. So I was thinking, what's going to happen to me if I ever get fired now in 2013? So I was with a friend, a really good friend. He was working for a company, and then he invited me to go to Jordan because he was there. So I was in Jordan, and we were drinking wine, seeing the sunset in Wadi Rum, and it was a beautiful atmosphere. And I was thinking, what's going to happen? Because I'm a long-term thinker. So I'm not a person that I just thinking in the moment. I'm thinking, a couple of years ahead. And it's like, what's going to happen to you, Miguel, if you're fired right now? Because there are 900 CVs there and you need to compete against them. And I said, I'm going to move to Sweden. So 15 days later, I was fired from my work. And then I said to my manager, okay, great, I'm going to move to Sweden. And then my manager said to me, you will never succeed in Sweden. And I said, well, you will see. You have to see that. That's not true. I mean, this is your perspective, but you don't know me. And because I'm quite a determined person, so I moved to Sweden 2013 with a small bicycle from Madrid. So I just locked my apartment. I moved to Sweden with my bike. And then 2 weeks after, my bicycle was stolen.
Because I was about to say, having a bicycle in Sweden or any Scandinavian country is like a must. So that's
is. And I was like, how it's possible they're stealing a bicycle to a Spaniard? It should be the other way around. We should steal, bicycles, not the other way around. So yeah, that's what I moved to Sweden. And then the first year was extremely complicated, I would say.
So how have you found it, like, working and living in Sweden compared to like back in Spain?
Well, I mean, this is completely different type of organizations. I mean, Spain is like really hierarchical organization. So basically, the manager decides everything. And we have an extremely bad culture in Spain that is, you need to be in the office really late until your manager is leaving. So I remember once I was working in Spain, and then my manager came to my office because by that time I was learning German. And then he came to the office, and then he said to me, hey, I came to the office at 6 and you have already left the office. And then he sent me an email at 10 at night just to tell me, hey, it's 10 p.m., I'm still working, and you, lazy bastard, you left the office at 5:30, right? And then I replied to him, hey, that this is how the project is going on, everything is going well, everything's under control. And then he replied me at 12. So basically, they use this type of management by fear, management by control, and they know there's a lot of unemployment rate in Spain. So they are using fear to make people, to work, I would say, or to stay in their jobs. Well, in Scandinavia, of course, we don't have like 20% unemployment rate by that time. Now we have like 13 in Spain. Scandinavia is about 7. And here the organization is completely flat. So I remember if I need to talk to my manager in Spain, I need to talk to the secretary. And then the secretary was booked me a meeting with my manager, something like that, right? Well, in Scandinavia, it's completely horizontal infrastructure, organization. So when I moved to Sweden, I am also a manager in my actual company. So I drive a team of, right now it's 5, but before it was like 10 people. And I said, I will never have this type of management. So I use a lot of project management skills. So for example, I give them projects and I give them time. So for example, this project, you need to do it in 2 weeks. And then how you organize your time is up to you. If you want to work in the morning, in the evenings, if if you want to go to the gym. I mean, it's up to you. And this is a good way of getting more engagement of people, and also they have more commit to the work, I would say. So yeah, it's completely different styles, I would say.
Oh yeah, I can definitely recognize from when I lived in Denmark and the way we work and how you kind of management and the management style here and so on. There was definitely some opinion clashes when I moved here and about how things should work. So I definitely recognize when you move country, it's very different. So were you already into leather when you lived in Spain? Is that something Sweden brought out?
No, that's not true. It's basically when I get my first job in Sweden. So when I get my first job in Sweden, I was working for a company that we were printing banknotes. That's a really interesting job because I was traveling around the world with central banks, and I really enjoy working in that company. So that company was like 30 kilometers away from Stockholm. So I brought my car from Madrid to Stockholm. And then by that time I have a boyfriend. So I drove from Madrid to Barcelona. From Barcelona, I took the boat to Genova in Italy. And then I drove all the way up to Milano. I picked him up in Milano, and then we drove all to Germany. And then we stayed in Berlin. And then we were in Berlin. I bought my first harness.
That is a popular choice as the first piece of kit. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I was kind of like scared, going to the store, and then, I'm getting naked and then put the harness on. But I mean, I like it. And then I moved to Sweden. And then I met a guy here in Sweden. So he was into leather. And then he started letting me try his leather boots and his pants and all that stuff. And then was like, I was fascinated. I was like, yeah, I need to try this. I like this. And then, the rest is history.
Well, if people after this, when they're done listening or watching this episode, go and check out Miguel's profile. It's very nice to look at. There's definitely some really nice gear on there. And you have like you like the full like outfit with the big jacket and like proper bluff guy.
Yeah, I mean, I have here my language jacket. I can put it on if you want. Uh, I think it's just a matter of I mean, of course, it gives you empowerment, right?
Mm.
And it gives you like you feel like empowered. You feel like you have the control of the situation and things like that, right? But in reality, this is just an appearance, and this is something that we're living now in the gay world. Is that everything is based on appearance? It's like, oh, this guy is hot. This guy is nice. I should approach him because he looks good, right? Well, in reality, it should be the other way around. This is just the beginning of the book, right? But you need to read inside. And this is the most important thing, is that people, they should work on self-esteem and, work on yourself. And this is when the empowerment comes in, not the way you look. Because I mean, I am 170, and I remember when I started dating guys in Madrid, I remember I met a guy, and then he was a really cute guy. And then he said, no, I don't like you because you're short. And then I said to him, well, and you're from Argentina, that's even worse. I don't want to say, I mean, I have also family in Argentina, but I was, that time I was like, hey, I mean, he's refusing me because I'm short, right? And at the end, it was like, well, I cannot do anything about that, right? That's the way I was born. Of course, there is some things that you can change. Of course, you can go to the gym, or you can eat more healthy food, or you can stop drinking alcohol. So, to more or less to feel better, right? The best investment that you can do in life is invest in yourself. It's just knowing about yourself, setting your boundaries, your limits, be surrounded by people you give you good energy, people that love you, and I would say, nice people that also make you grow and learn.
Yeah, absolutely. It's important to surround yourself with good energy and good people, especially when we go on the kink scene where it can be quite heavy on, like, for example, alcohol and drugs and so on, where sometimes it can be a bit aggressive in the scene. Sometimes you like that aggression, absolutely. That is a part of BDSM and stuff like that, but it's also all has to be in healthy levels. So you say in your little text that you like sport, healthy living, cooking, and traveling.
Yeah.
So if people look at your profile, they can definitely say, well, your profile is literally called lever_CrossFit.
Yep.
So you are into CrossFit. When did you get into that?
Well, the reason I joined CrossFit is I had a friend in Barcelona, and he's a doctor, and I met him in Barcelona, really sweet guy, not muscle at all. And then I lost contact with him for a couple of months. And then 2 months later, I saw him on Instagram, like, boom, explosion. And I was like, what? And then I say, hey, Christian, what have you done? I say, oh, I'm doing CrossFit. I say, hey, I need to try that. So then I joined one CrossFit here in Stockholm. And I remember it was like, there's no machines. There's just kettlebells and, and racks and barbells. And I was like, I mean, this cannot be too complicated. So then I remember the coach said, okay, just pick up the 20 kilos bar. So I put it in my bag, and then, oh, you go up. And then, I couldn't go up with the barbell, basically. And then he said, okay, now you need to put weight. I said, what? Even more weight on top of that? So, and I remember the first week when I was doing CrossFit in Sweden, it was extremely painful. I basically couldn't sit on the toilet because I have sore muscles everywhere. So
I've seen the meme pictures were just like 3 days after leg day, and you're just like you can't get onto the toilet.
Yeah, that's correct. And I remember, in Sweden, if you book a class, but then you don't go to the class, then you need to do 100 burpees.
Right.
So I was like, I need to go to that class. I was extremely exhausted on Saturday, but I said, I need to go to the class because I don't want to do 100 burpees. So then I went to the class and I was like, Murph. And I was like, well, maybe that's not too complicated. But then this Murph was, you need to run 2 kilometers. Then you need to do 100 pull-ups. Then you have to do 200 push-ups, 300 air squats, and then run 2 kilometers.
Jeez, I'm just getting tired of like you telling me about that. That's a lot.
I did it in like 34 minutes, so it was quite good. But then I got fever after the class. I was completely exhausted. But I mean, I do, sometimes I work from Gran Canarias because my ex has a bungalow there. So I go there and then I have a really good atmosphere going into the CrossFit. You have good friends. And then through a friend in Gran Canarias, he also introduced me to a nutritionist. And then, this guy started checking how much food should I eat because I didn't have control. So then it's a combination of sport, food, and healthy life, I would say, because you are the one who would need to take care of yourself. Nobody can take care of yourself, right?
Yeah, I've said all year since January, I've kind of like, I need to get back to gym. I need to get back to gym. Still have not made it back to the gym, but it is on the cards eventually. It's just more the motivation. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, of course, I'm struggling sometimes to get motivation, okay? But I mean, you get endorphins, you get dopamine after going to the gym. And my recommendation is not to go, because if you go to the gym, it's quite boring. I mean, you basically put in your music and then you do this or that or whatever. Yeah. But I mean, if you go to CrossFit, it's just 45-minute pass. Usually the work of the day, maybe sometimes it's just 12 minutes, 9 minutes, but nightmare 9 minutes, okay? But I mean, you see everybody suffering, like you see, like, I mean, she's going to die, but you cannot stop because everybody's in the same shit. So my recommendation is to go to classes when you see pain around you.
It's very close to like fetish life. You go to a club and you kind of want to see someone get flogged and so on. So it's a little bit the same like sadomasochism.
Mm-hmm. That's correct. That's a similarity there, right?
So how many years have been doing CrossFit then?
I started 2016, and then right now I'm doing combination between CrossFit and also I do gym. In the summer in Scandinavia, you do a swim run. So it's just swim, run, swim, run, swim, run. I also do yoga, just for stretching. I do at home sometimes meditation. And I discovered something that is great that is called Hail Breathe. So basically you go into, it's just really close to my place. It's just a place when you're sleeping for 45 minutes or 1 hour. And then you start breathing, like inhale for 3, 4, 5 minutes, something like this. And then you start holding your breath for three minutes more or less. And then you start like dreaming and seeing things weird in your brain. And then you get extremely relaxed after the class. So when some people, they say, I need to drink alcohol or take drugs, to feel better, you have the solution in yourself. There are things like you can run in the park, you can have a walk, you can masturbate. This is also a way of releasing, tension.
Mm-hmm.
You can go to these type of classes, you can do meditation. There's extremely a lot of mechanisms that human beings we have. I remember, for example, when I was stressed in Madrid, I get really relaxed when I was taking language lessons. So I studied German for 7 years and then Swedish in Madrid. Mm-hmm. And for me, it was like relaxation to learn a new language. But you need to find, your, I would say your way of escaping.
Well, yeah, it's like exercise. I think a lot of people forget that when you do exercise, endorphins, and you can even get a natural high from running or so on. As recovering addicts, especially like someone like me, something that's will release endorphins and relax the brain and so on is so important. And you can get these natural things that the body generates itself.
Yeah, that's I would say that's my recommendation. Of course, there is also, there are medication that can support you on that. And also you can go on therapy if you need, extra help. And also you can also take some life coach sessions. And another thing, it could be just also reading a book. And, read, because the more information you have, the better you can understand yourself, right? You need to, it's like dating. When you go dating and meet other people, sometimes we just go into the jungle and you don't know what's going on, right? And this is a huge mistake, from my opinion. You need to have your tools. You need to see your red flags. You need to be aware of what's going on, right? It's probably, I'm not taking drugs, so I don't know how that works. But if you are informed, if you know the consequences, and for example, if you go to schools and then you teach people, hey, these are the consequences, this is how you're gonna feel, then people, they have more information, right? Because most of the time it's because you don't have information and then you just try just for fun, right? And then you can probably get into something worse, right? I think information is the key.
Oh, information is always crucial. It's very important to manage all that and make sure you have the tools to keep a healthy life. You mentioned dating. You're single, right?
Yeah, I'm single.
Any potential partners on the horizon, or are you just happy single?
No, I don't have any potential candidates right now. So if anybody wants to send me the CV, I will take it. I'm just reading a lot about dating, and I'm also writing a book about dating.
Okay.
With all the learnings, and I think it's quite interesting because sometimes you understand, like, okay, I make this mistake. I could have done this in a different way. I should probably leave this situationship earlier. So I think it's a good way. The more information you have, the better.
So you're writing a book?
Yep.
So when is this book coming out, or is it just something that's more in your spare time? And then
I'm using, of course, my spare time to write the book with all the learnings, and also I decided to write this book because when I moved to Sweden and I met my ex, he was dating a guy for I think a year and a half or almost 2 years, and then nothing started going well. He started feeling really bad. And then after that, he went into depression for 3 years, and he was on medication and everything. And then we were hiking. We have an extremely good relationship together. And a year ago, we were hiking in Gotland. And I know him for 10 years, but then he told me, hey, Miguel, I basically lost 5 years of my life because of that situation. And it was painful for me. And then I said, hey, I also suffer, everybody has suffered from breakups, and they're extremely painful. And I remember 10 years ago, I was dating a guy, and then it took me 1 year to recover after that breakup. And it was extremely painful. And I was like, why this happened to me? So now it's time to understand why this had happened. So then I start reading, gathering information, and then making my own conclusions. So I'm writing a lot, because when you go dating, the first thing that you need to do, the homework, is self-esteem. That's basic. Because when you have a good self-esteem, you can set your limits and then to say, hey, I'm not going to accept this. But if you go into a lower self-esteem, then you accept things that you're not okay with. And then you get into this down spiral that the other person is taking more power than you feel down here, right? And then it's extremely hard to go up and recuperate the self-esteem and the control of the relationship.
It's very important, especially like, I'll just come back to like recovering addicts. When we start dating and so on, there's a lot of, you have to do a lot of healing first before you go into dating, because I think someone explained to me very well. If you go into a relationship, imagine you both have plates. You have to merge your dinner plates. But if you both have broken dinner plates, it's not going to work. You can't build a dinner plate set together if you're bringing broken dinner plates. So you have to fix them first, that either with glue or buy new ones, depending on which route you go. But it's just because if you go in, like you mentioned, if you go in with self-esteem down here and they're up there, it's not going to work. You don't have to be perfect, of course.
No, we're not
keep
perfect.
working on yourself, but you have to build yourself up before you start dating. I've definitely made those mistakes in the past.
Yeah, I mean, everybody has made mistakes, on dating. And sometimes you date the wrong person, and then sometimes you stay longer in a situationship that you should have lived before, right? And sometimes when you stay longer than you should be, then you start feeling bad. Then you start feeling, with anxiety, like what's going on with me, why I did something wrong, why this guy doesn't like me. And then you start thinking, questioning yourself. Like, what's wrong with me? What I've done wrong, right? And then your self-esteem goes down. But the most important thing after doing this research of love, I would say, Ralph, is that one thing that we need to distinguish is, okay, what is love? Love is like, oh, I can love you a lot because, I mean, you're an amazing guy. You have a lot of, you're sexy. You're cool to be with. I mean, I enjoy being with you. That's one thing. That's my side, from my side to you. But the other thing is like, how do I feel when I am with you? And this is why you need to check, in my personal opinion, that's the most important thing to check. It's like, do I feel great with this guy? Do I feel safe? Do I trust this person? Then it's like, okay, this is a guy where I can establish a relationship. Or do I have anxiety? Do I feel sad? Do I feel don't seen? Cannot be express myself? I'm walking on eggshells? Then that's the reality. And this is why you probably need to check, right? Instead of just, I love that person so much. No, it's like, how this person make me feel when I'm with that person. That would be my advice.
Oh, I've definitely hung out with people where I was like, oh, they're really lovely, but they don't make me feel comfortable or like you say, eggshells. I've definitely been in relationships where I do feel a little bit like I walk on eggshells because I don't want to upset the person or and so on. That is either something to do with them or something to do with me. It can go both ways when you feel like that. With any relationship, communication is so important, and you kind of have to just be honest.
Yeah, I mean, communication is the key for everything. I mean, communication is just, first you need to be vulnerable to talk about your feelings. So that has to be a component of emotional maturity when you talk about yourself and you understand the other person. The other thing, I think for me, love is based on 3 pillars. One is emotional maturity, when you can, express yourself, talk about feelings and be vulnerable. The other thing is emotional connection, like values, and both of you have the same point of view in life and you want to go in the same direction. And the third pillar is sex. Because if sex is missing in the relationship, you're going to look for it outside the relationship, right?
Yeah.
If you don't have emotional connection with your partner, you're going to feel alone in the relationship. And then it's not going to work, because then you start wondering why I'm staying here. This person doesn't listen to me, or I don't feel her, right? And, you know, sometimes when you give feedback to someone, I always say to my team, I said, feedback is one of the best tools the human beings we have for growing, even if we don't like it. Sometimes it's like positive feedback, like, hey, you've done a great job, but sometimes the feedback is negative. I also received negative feedback many times in my life. And then I start questioning why this person is saying that to me. But then after a while, I start thinking, I'm like, yeah, that's true. I can grow, I can learn. I shouldn't do this mistake anymore. And this is when you grow, when you move from one point into another. That's my point of view, at least.
No, it's all valid point of views. Very, very true. Sometimes when we hear the word, when someone makes criticisms of you, you think, oh, it's negative and you've done something wrong. It's like, no, it's not necessarily you've done something wrong. You may not have performed to the quality you should have, but a criticism or someone being negative about your work can also be an opportunity of learning and so on. The same with a relationship is an opportunity to learn. If someone brings something up, well, you do this and this makes me feel this way, well, then you take that on and you see if you can work on it. Or like any relationship, there's compromises as well. So it's all about growing as well. So we talked about relationships and red flags and so on. How is it dating when you're into leather? How are you finding that? How will that be a part of the book?
Well, the book is just for myself and for my friends at the beginning. Let's see. No, it's not about leather, because I think if you just limitate it just to leather, I think it probably you're missing, you know, a lifetime partner if you just focus on that, right? But I mean, this is something. It's a question that I'm answering or trying to answer. Should I just go for a partner who is not into leather, or should I just find a partner who is into leather? I think, from my perspective, I think it would be great if he's into the same thing, because then something is going to be out, something's going to be missed, right? And then it's like, are you going to go to this party and then he's not going to join you? Or it's like, I like this type of sex, and then you are more into vanilla, and then, you know. But I think, as everything in relationships, everything can be negotiated. Sometimes this is often with your partner, you're scared of telling him, I like this in bed. And then on Grindr, just you met someone and then you start talking and say, hey, I like this and that quite easily. I think we should do that, the exercise of, if you have a partner that you really like and you really enjoy and you really take care of, I think you should be open and transparent and say, hey, this is also part of my life that I would love to enjoy with you. And I think it's a compliment if that person can learn from you, and then you can also learn from that person, right? Because sometimes the more, different opposite person like you, at the end is the person that you learn the most, I would say, in life, right? So I think you need to be open and transparent. So now when I meet someone, they say, hey, can you send me pictures? Yeah, I send pictures also in leather, so they don't get shocked. Yeah. So I think I prefer to bring the story at the beginning of the story, not just at the end, right?
It's for me, for example, if I'm gonna date anyone, I kind of have to be upfront with the leather, but I also have to be upfront with the fact that I'm in recovery, because there is just a very hard boundary that I can't date someone who does any hard drugs whatsoever, because I know what my brain does and it will romanticize that for me, because then I'll start things like, okay, he's doing this when I'm not there, maybe I should join in, blah, 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 and all this. So it's just a very hard boundary. So I tend to ask the question quite quickly. It's like, what is your view on drugs? It's like, oh, I dabble, fine, no judgment, but then we won't date. We can have sex if you don't do drugs whilst you're around me, but we can't date, because there's nothing if they still need that on occasion, there's just not something I can build anything on.
The only one who can protect yourself is you, Ralph, right?
Yes.
And you need to set your boundaries in life, what is good and what is not good for you. And then you've been there, right? You've been there. And then you know how difficult probably is to leave from there, right? So there's like, I tried and I don't want to be there. So that's why it's good from the beginning you establish your boundaries. And this is something that I'm writing in the book. It's just sometimes, and that happened to me 2 times in my life, is when you start a relationship just based on sex, or like when chemistry is extremely good, then you start having a lot of dopamine, you have a lot of excitement with that person, and then you don't see the red flags, right? Because it's like, oh, the sex is so great, I love this person to be part of my life, and I want to to establish something, a future together. I don't do that anymore. I did it in the past. I learned a lesson. Right now, I meet the people first.
Yeah.
I never met that person at home. I just have a walk, and then I try to understand, if that person is emotionally mature, if he's a nice guy, what is his values, what is he looking for, and and this is for me a way of protecting yourself. And this is what you're also doing. Like, hey, those are my limits. I'm not gonna cross them. So it's better to take them up front, right?
Yeah, it's so important to kind of like, okay, this is a hard boundary. This is something that has to be respected. For any recovering addict, it is so important to just keep yourself safe, because it just takes that one slip up and then you're down the rabbit hole again. I turned 6 years sober, and I don't want to. Even if I had a slip up, I'm not going to lose the 6 years, because I still have the 6 years. But there's just a lot of damage that comes with not respecting my own boundaries and not keeping myself safe when it comes to at least dating. And I do want to date. I am also getting to a point where it's like I'm 40 next year. I would like a partner. I would also like a kinky partner, but it like you say, you kind of have to be open to like see what's out there, because as I've said this to many other recovery, especially kinky recovering addicts, it's like our pool seems to get smaller and smaller because we're gay, so that's already quite small, and then we're into kink, so that makes it smaller, and then you're a recovering addict, so there's a whole boundary there, even smaller. So it's like, how the fuck do you find them?
Well, one option is to meet someone who is not into leather and then bring him into leather. That could be one option. In dating, I would say it's like you're in the ocean with your small boats, and then trying to meet other small boats and then see what's going on. But of course, there are pirates in the ocean, so never go into the pirates, or never go to a yacht that is fancy, because something is going to be off there, right?
Well, it's kind of that saying that love does blind. You mentioned that earlier. You kind of, if you can go full throttle with both feet first, and you kind of is like, oh, I love him, the sex is amazing, he's just a lovely person, but you just ignore all the red flags and the compromises you're doing in that relationship, because love does blind. And I've definitely been in relationships where I have been a bit blind to some of the stuff that happens in the relationship. Where you only really notice it afterwards. And it's like,
yeah, in life, usually, we usually measure when you have a success in life, you never look back, because this is how the way should be, right? It's like, oh, I got this job. Oh, I got this promotion. I got this. Oh, that's because I worth it. I deserve it, right? But when you go into something in life that is like, it's not going so well for you, or then you hit rock bottom, then I think for me, has been the most painful but growing time in my life. I've learned so much from those situations. And I'm a completely different person. For example, when I moved to Sweden and I didn't have a job, and I ended up working as a tour guide in Stockholm. And then one day, because I didn't have any job, so I worked on a conference with doctors. So they said, oh, we need 2 models. So I was basically naked with my underwear on a table, me and a girl from Colombia. So then the doctors, they come into the room and then they need to scan us with, with a sensor and then to see all the, yeah. So everybody was going to her because, she has big boots and, she was really attractive. And then to me was coming a really old woman, touching my body. And I remember sitting there, I was like, Miguel, you studied 7 years in the university, you speak English, you speak German, you are a skilled professional, and you're sitting here on a table touched by an old woman. What's wrong with you, right?
Where did I turn wrong?
Yes, it's like what I did wrong in my life to be here, right? And in those moments is that when you learn the most in your life. And it's like, okay, I've been there, but I don't want to be there anymore, right?
Yeah.
It's the same for you. Okay, I've been there. I was not happy probably, and I feel miserable, and my life was going in not in the right direction. And it's like I need to protect myself. So that's why you need to date people that they have, the same values as you, and the same objectives. And we're in the 40s. I'm 42, and I also in the middle of my life. So that's when I'm looking for a partner. It's like I also want to, how do I want to spend the rest of my life with? And it's like I want to have a partner so I can take care of him. We can grow, we can learn, we can travel together, we can have a nice life, we can enjoy sex together. And it's like to have a rock by you who is supporting you and also help you. And in love, you need to be smart to whom you let go into your life. Because depending on that, I would say a lot of happiness can bring into your life if you choose the right partner.
Oh, absolutely. You mentioned travel, and then you also
Yeah.
mentioned that in your text. What is your favorite travel destination?
Wow. I've been to 67 countries.
Oh, geez. Okay, now all of a sudden I feel slightly. I used to travel quite a lot in my 20s, but I don't think I've been to that many countries.
Well, I spend most of my money traveling because I think it's a good investment. A country that I really have a special memory is Iceland, because that happened. I went there during my birthday, 2010, when the volcano exploded. So I bought the tickets in February before knowing the volcano was going to explode. So I was there with my parents, and it was beautiful. They don't have any trees in the whole country, but it's the nature. If you like waterfalls, if you like nature, if you like hiking, if you like ice, if you like good food, Iceland is a country that is completely different. I would recommend to go there. If you recommend me a city to go, I would say Rio de Janeiro.
Oh,
It's one of my favorites because it's the location where is the you go to Ipanema, you can go hiking into Deutscher Mines, these two mountains. It's like people in the beach, they are extremely friendly, good food, good atmosphere. So I think those two places. Of course, there are many interesting countries too. I remember Indonesia is also a really nice country to travel because it's really easy. Japan, I would say, is completely different that you have seen in the rest of the world. A country that I will never go, but I was there for work 3 times, was India. No, for me. Norway, we have it here. It's extremely nice too, the nature. So yeah.
So where do you think that it feels a little bit like you have a bit of a love for the Nordic countries, where it's quite dark and cold and sometimes very wet. Coming from Spain, where it's quite hot in the summer and so on. How come you kind of levitate towards those countries?
That's an explanation, as everything in life. I was 13 years old, and I was watching the TV, and I was watching the Lillehammer Winter Games.
Yes.
So in 1992, we have the Olympics in Barcelona. So for us, it was like the best promotion of the country. Like, we can organize Olympic Games in Spain. Then it was the Lillehammer Winter Games, and I was inspired by the Norwegian television showing the fjords, the midnight sun, the how they were building the venues for the Olympics, and that inspired me to be like, I want to be in the Olympics too. So 8 years later, or 6 years later, I applied to be a volunteer in Salt Lake City Winter Games 2002. I was by that time I was 19 or 18, and I remember I went to because I didn't have I applied, I did my interview on telephone, I sent letters, I went to the police to see my criminal records. And then I need a place to stay in Utah because, at that time there was no internet, there was no Facebook. So like, how can I find a place in Utah? So I went to the Mormon church.
Wow.
Then I met a Mormon, and this Mormon introduced me to his family. And then I could make my dream come true. So sometimes in life, we think that you have a glass that is not able to break. And that's not true. The human beings, were more capable of what we want to do. So I went to Salt Lake City to make my dreams come true, to be part of the Olympic Games. And that's why also inspired me to move to Scandinavia. So I didn't want to go to Norway because I was waiting to go to Norway for my when I get married. So I was put in Norway, just waiting. And then I decided to move to Sweden because I have a good friends in Stockholm, and I also was learning Swedish when I was in Madrid. So that was the reason. And I fell in love with Stockholm because my ex-boyfriend, he was a pilot. So he was doing a training here in Arlanda. And then we traveled together across Sweden. So we were in Stockholm, then we traveled all the way south to Skåne, and then we went to Copenhagen. And I have good memories of Sweden. So it's like, if I lose my job, I'm going to move to Stockholm. And that's what I did.
Well, Stockholm is a beautiful city. It's because of like all the water there, it just feels very like when you're walking through the city and you have all the lakes and so on, it feels, well, it is really extremely clean there because recycling is like on the agenda for the Swedes quite a lot. So it's absolutely beautiful city to go to visit to. Be warned, if you take a flight there, you may end up in an airport that's an hour and a half outside Sweden, which I did last time I was there.
You went to Västerås, so you went to...
Yes. When I went there, this is many, many, many years ago. This must be 2010. It was the last event I did of my title year as Mr. Europe. And I was hosted by SLM in Sweden, Scandinavian Leathermen. And the day I was going home, I missed the bus out to the airport. Trying to call around to different clubs members to find someone who didn't drink last night was a bit of a task. But I made my flight. I got home, but it was very stressful trying to figure that out.
That happened to me last winter. I was traveling 6 weeks in Latin America, and I was in Argentina, and I thought I was going to go with my parents to Cataratas de Iguazu. And then we were going to fly from Aeroparque. Aeroparque is by Buenos Aires. And then I couldn't see the flight on the panel. And it's like, wait a moment, the flight is from Ezeiza. So I need to, to take a taxi because it was a Sunday at 7 a.m. in the morning. Otherwise, I couldn't make it.
So your first piece of leather was a harness.
Yeah, but that's not my favorite.
I was about to ask the question, what is your favorite piece of leather?
I would say the best. Yeah, I haven't used the harness for years, I would say. So, well, no, I'm lying now because I went to Berlin to Folsom, and then Ra took me a couple of sexy pictures, and then he put me some harness on top of them just to take the picture. So it was fun, but it was not mine.
It was not yours, but the vest is your favorite.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, you look great in your gear, and I love seeing the pictures on Instagram when you post your pictures, especially when you have the full jacket on and so on. You also have like a big fetish for cigar smoking as well, which is...
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I think it's sex. I mean, I'm not a smoker.
Well, this is the thing, is because you have the CrossFit bit, which is like really, really healthy and healthy living and so on. And then there's the opposite side where you're really into cigars and leather.
Yeah, I think it's, I don't know, I think it was, I saw like a video or something many years ago, and I was like, wow, that's so sexy to do it and to try. So I'm not a smoker, but then I have a good friend in the US. Then one day online, he told me, I need to teach you how to smoke because you don't know how to do it. So I think it's because of the look, but not because of because I'm not a smoker. I mean, I'm quite clean person and healthy. But yeah, of course, I enjoy that fetish too.
coming to the end of the episode, if anyone's listened to this and they've connected with something you've said, where can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, I would say on Instagram, I don't know, my Instagram is leather_CrossFitter. They can find me there. And I'm happy to share, my personal experience with anyone. I love to listen, and I love to grow and to understand other people's. And I think also a warm person. A couple of times in the last, I would say, 4 weeks, people they say, "Oh, I never talked to you because I got an impression that you were like a kind of like an arrogant, or you could be kind of distant person or not warm person." And I'm totally the opposite. I'm a really caring and a great guy. So yeah, feel free to contact me and to talk.
It's I guess sometimes people see a certain look, like you have a fantastic physique. There's no it's not even me trying to do a compliment. It's just a fact. You look the way you look. So some people can find that intimidating. I definitely know when I wrote you, I felt a little bit intimidated because I don't look like that. I've never looked like that. I wish I did, but I also like cake too much. But yeah, sometimes people can find it intimidating. So it's nice to know that I think a lot of when I talk to people who have a certain body build and so on, they're normally really down to earth, and it's completely opposite to what people think they might be.
Yeah, this is also connected to self-esteem, right? Mm-hmm. It's like the other day I was here in Stockholm. I had a date with a guy. Of course, I mean he's really sweet, and it was not probably my type of physically guy. But I said, you learn a lot from different human beings. And then it's supposed to be, because I do like Cinderella, 1 hour, 30 minutes, and then I go home because I'm losing my shoes. But with this guy,
into a pumpkin.
Yes. And then with this guy, I stayed like 5 hours walking. Wow. So we walked like 20 kilometers in Stockholm. And it was extremely interesting to listen to him and to listen about his life. So sometimes we thinking like, oh, because this guy looks this way, he has to think that way, right?
Yeah.
That's not true. I think we're human beings. We're here to connect to each other. And my recommendation is always try to talk and then learn something from someone, because you're going to learn something.
Absolutely. And just to end, is there anything you would give as a piece of advice to someone starting out on the kink scene or so on?
I think everybody, we're also struggling, I mean, I'm the first one. Today I'm going to go to Social Leather here in Stockholm, and I'm living in Östermalm. It's probably, you've been to Stockholm, so it's kind of like the most posh area, more or less. And I feel, going down the stairs, and what happened in my neighbors, they see me in full leather. I also remember when I went to New York to pick up my leather in August. And then I sent all my language to my friend in New York because I didn't want to pay taxes to Sweden. So it was an opportunity for me to travel to New York. And then this guy, when I put all my leather on the toilet and then came out, he told me, because I know you, otherwise I will be scared if I meet you on the street. I would say, try to be confident in yourself. Try to be also surrounded by, not to go alone to those places. I would say I remember the first time I went to New Action, I was with a guy I trust him. So then we went together. So then I don't feel like what I'm doing here, right? And it's also, we're human beings and we're here to explore, right? So just exploring is getting you out of the comfort zone. And I think that's beautiful when you get out of your comfort zone in life. That would be my advice.
Absolutely. And also a shout out to SLM Stockholm. I remember the staircase. It is a little bit like when you go in the first time, it's a bit intimidating because you're kind of going down this corridor, and it's not a steep staircase, it's quite an elongated staircase down. But just how have you found, just to end on the last question, how have you found the club in Stockholm? My experience with the members there, they're all very friendly guys.
Yeah, I mean, today I'm going to go to this leather social to meet them and to socialize with them. to be honest, I've been to SLM maybe 3-4 times in my life. It's a little bit hard for me, to have sex in a public place. I'm not this type of guy. But tomorrow, for example, another friend, he invited me to a party, like a rave party, and you have to be in leather into that party. It's also with women. And I said, yeah, let's it's also getting out of your comfort zone to grow. Maybe I'm not so comfortable going there at the beginning, but that is, I need to push myself to try new things. So that's when I go to that party, and then, to have fun and to meet other boats. So,
well, this is the thing: is just because you go to a place where you can have sex, you don't actually have to. No one's forcing you to have sex. For me, when I go out, I tend to be much more social than going to the dark rooms and so on. I'm not saying that I don't do that. I do on occasion dabble with going in there, and I enjoy it. But like you, I more enjoy the social aspect of it.
Yeah, I think, for me, I really enjoy sex one-to-one and having fun with that person and just focusing on that one, not to try to keep people out of like what
whacking people off. It's like, leave me alone. I'm focusing on this person.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for coming on. It's absolutely been a joy to talk to you.
Miguel, thank you very much for your time, and I hope we can meet once in person.
That would be really, really lovely. I'm overdue a visit to Stockholm at any point, because it's been over a decade since I've been there. So
I mean, if you come to Stockholm, you just let me know, and then we have a beer together, okay?
Absolutely, absolutely. Non-alcoholic beer.
Of course.
But thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thank you very much for your time. See you.
Okay. And that was this week's episode of RealClearFetish Talks RealClearPlay. It was absolutely lovely to talk to Miguel, and I'll see you next time. Bye.